For you, Jack, do you think Trey Sermon could be a bell cow type of back in the NFL and in Kyle's offense?
That's a really interesting question, because when you watch him run the ball, the way that he runs it kind of would lead you to think that, yeah, he could be a bell cow back. There's times when you watch him that he's able to get 25, 30 carries and really dominate the game. He did that a couple of times at Ohio State. You saw that from a little bit of Oklahoma. But I'm going to say no to this.
Yeah.
I think that I'm not going to say he's a bell cow back. I think he's a guy that's going to be more of a finisher.
Right.
If that makes sense. He's going to be like your closer. He's going to come in. He's going to get a couple of carries early in the game. But he's that guy who, when it comes to the fourth quarter and the 49ers are up by 10 or 14 points, that's where he's going to shine and he's going to take over, because he's going to be able to continue just moving the sticks and take those hard carries there. So, he might get 12 to 15 carries, but those are mostly going to be in the second half. At least that's the way I kind of envision them utilizing him, either there or him. Some kind of definitely going to be a rotational situation with their running backs.
Well, and I think the thing you hit on there is that last word, that rotational thing. I think Kyle isn't the type of head coach or offensive coordinator to just be like, oh, you're going to be my running back and it's just going to be you. He likes to mix in guys with different skill sets who can do different things. So I think with Trey Sermon, like you perfectly mentioned, and I think Grant has mentioned this comparison too before, he's like that Leonard Fournette type of finisher that the 49ers need on their roster and have needed for the last 3 years. He's going to be able to, like you were saying, late in games in the fourth quarter when they need to run the ball 5 yards after 5 yards after 5 yards and just wear teams down. He's going to be really key for the 49ers in that. And I don't think he's necessarily going to be that bell cow like you were saying, because I think with the 49ers, they're going to have so many other running backs, no matter whether it's this year or any other year that they have Trey Sermon on their team, who can come in and complement him well because they do other things well, like Raheem Mostert, right? He can come in and be that change of pace back. So while the 49ers are just going down people's throats, right, then Mostert comes and rips off a 20-yard run or a 30-yard run, right? And then Trey Sermon comes right back in and he's barreling you down in the red zone and when you get onto your side of the field. So I think what Trey Sermon offers is just that type of punisher, like you said, that Kyle just hasn't had in his years here with the 49ers at least.
Yeah, I think he's like my comp to him, and I kind of mentioned it right after the draft when we were doing a couple of breakdowns on him. I look at him as a Marshawn Lynch light almost. When you watch him, because of the way that he finishes runs, he's so hard to bring down. It almost always takes 3 or 4 guys to bring him down.
And if I can, real quick, Jack, I'll let you go in a second. I just want to say he falls forward almost every single play. I love that.
Exactly. Yeah, and you're going right where I was saying anyway. Yes, that's the way he's a finisher, always falling forward. And then on top of that, there's Harvey over here in the comment section. He makes a good point on too. Is because I like I said, I don't think he's a bell cow. You're going to have a little bit of the rotational guy, but I think Mitchell also is a guy that's a rotational piece. It kind of gives them another hitter, right? Maybe not the same finisher type of a back that Sermon is, but he's definitely a really good inside runner. You saw that quite a bit from him at Louisiana. And, both of these guys are guys who never have really been the guy that carries the load. They both pretty much always been a split the carries kind of throughout their college careers, with a couple of exceptions for Sermon. But Mitchell's almost always been a split back there. So, and then you look at the fact that there's 17 games, and I think that whole bell cow back thing is kind of maybe going kind of to the wayside a little bit.
Yeah, and especially this is something we've seen, as a big fantasy football player, just 5 years ago. I mean, the running backs that used to be available who were quote-unquote bell cow guys, right? It's completely shifted that mentality where you used to have the Todd Gurleys who would just get every single run after every single run in a game. Teams know they can't wear down guys like that, and they understand the value in having guys with different types of skill sets who can do different things for them. So I think, and this is something that Kyle's especially played into. I don't think Trey Sermon's going to be a bell cow, but I could definitely see him leading this team in carries and in yards by the end of the season. I think week 1, he could, get 15 to 18 carries, but I think that's where I see him maxing out. I don't think he's a guy who they're going to be giving the ball to 25 times a game, right? I think he's going to, like I said, that 15 to 18 range, that's a good spot for him. And then you get Raheem Mostert in for some run as well, 8 to 10 carries, because I think that's a guy that, it'll be interesting to see how the Niners use him this year, but it would seem smart to not overuse him, especially early in the season.
He has the capability where he might take over a couple of games here and there, but I really don't think they're going to see that on a regular basis. But he'll take over a game every once in a while just because he's going to be dominant, and they're going to keep him in there like what they did with Mostert in that NFC Championship game in 2019.
Absolutely. That's the perfect example of the kind of thing to where Kyle can find the specific matchup that he likes for that game and just use and abuse it over and over. So I think with Kyle, I think Trey Sermon, he's going to lead a lot. He's going to help in a lot of ways to where I think he can play almost against a lot of type of defenses. And I don't think there's many things you can do to slow down or game plan against a guy like that. But then they have all these other options like I'm talking about to change the pace and to catch teams off guard and to make defenses just constantly be thinking about, okay, who's in, what's the personnel, which running back is in the game. I mean, there's just going to be this constant conundrum for defensive coordinators.